Good evening, everybody. This is Alderman Lee from the 11th Ward. It is Monday, September 15th. It's about 6:24. We were supposed to start 10 minutes ago, but we're running on Asian Standard Time right now. We're here for a community zoning change meeting for 268 West 23rd Street. It's currently zoned, I believe it is RM 5.5. The requested zoning change is for B2-3. We have with us the owner's attorney, Mark Kupiak, as well as family members of the building owners. The Lees are here. Kevin is joining us via Zoom. We have Kenneth and their mom here as well. So Mark, why don't I turn it over to you to explain what the zoning change request is for?
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Alderwoman. My name is Mark Kupiak. I'm the zoning attorney. I represent the applicant, 268 West 23rd Street. And this property, small lot, is already improved with an old mixed-use building, 3 stories, 1, 2, 3. Originally, that first floor was some type of business or commercial use, still a big open space, and residential apartments on the upper floors. And again, because it's an old building, this lot and this block has been rezoned over the years, and it is currently zoned in RM 5.5. And we're here today because the Lee family owns the building, and they have a prospective tenant. Karen is a tenant, and Karen may in fact be on our Zoom call. And Karen's organization, and she could explain better than I, they do after-school tutoring. They tutor the kids after school. They've got experience and actually well regarded. And I've been dealing mostly with Kevin Lee, and he was very anxious to have them come in because it seems to fit very well at the building location, because in the surrounding area you've got a lot of full-time schools. So this would be a nice after-school activity for those kids. We seem to fall within a crack in our zoning ordinance and our business scheme here in the city, because a regular full-time school, like for example St. Teresa's across the street, but a full-time school accredited by the state that actually complies with your legal obligation to attend, that full-time accredited school is actually allowed as a permitted use in the residential district. And unfortunately, because we are just the after-school program, not the full-time school, we don't meet the city's zoning department's definition of school. So despite the fact that St. Teresa's permitted in the R district, but not our after-school program. And the city, for their own purposes, treats us more like a business, requires a business license, and unfortunately requires business zoning. So in order to bring this very nice tenant into the building, we're required to rezone this from an R district to a business district, in which case our tenant could get the business license and do the after-school tutoring on this site in the existing building and the existing first floor of the existing building. I'm not quite sure what the history was with prior business uses, but this would seem to be a nice use that would be very compatible with the neighborhood, and especially a large number of schools in the neighborhood. So that is my my overview. Karen, are you on the call by chance?
Yes, I'm on the call.
Okay. Karen, would you like to briefly describe your operation here for the people attending?
Yeah, sure, of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Chu. I'm the Executive Director of Project Vision. We're a nonprofit organization that's been in the neighborhood for about 20 years now. We serve youth ages 12 to 18 roughly in the neighborhood, and we've been running mostly after school programming. In the slide that Mark nicely has up here are our other 2 locations in Chinatown. So this location would basically be used to increase the capacity of the organization so that we can serve more youth. We'd mainly be using the space, the 268 West 23rd Street space for additional classroom space, essentially for after school groups like tutoring, group projects, workshops, things like that. So yeah, we'd be mostly in there during after school hours and then on some Saturdays as well.
And this is down the street from their current main location,
Yeah.
which is just east on 23rd Street, which is here. And then
Yes.
they've got another satellite on 22nd Place. So they are all up in Chinatown, basically. They do. Karen's being very modest. They serve kids from pretty much every single school in the neighborhood. And they're great program that has been around. Gosh, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years, right, Karen?
I know. That gives away
Um,
my age.
I know. But they are busting at the seams. So the zoning change is just to bring the building into conformity so that they can get the appropriate business license. You cannot get the business license if the property is not zoned properly. So there are no physical changes that are going to be happening to the building from the on the outside. There may be some refinishing on the inside, but that doesn't impact anything. So that is the gist of everything. Are there any questions from anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. You know, I grew up across the street from that building, and it was in the mid '60s when we moved in, and that place was never a business. It's always been residential. And you know, with the Haynes School and St. Therese, there's a lot of congestion. And across the street from that building is a senior citizen home. And I own a business right across the street from the senior citizen home, and I see an unbelievable amount of congestion. You get kids, the children of the elderly, in the morning, afternoon, throughout the day, double parked in front of the building, dropping off food or taking their elderly parents to go shopping and so forth. And right next to me is a physical therapist, and they get patients all the time, and they're always double parked. People are, you know, as I said, there's a lot of congestion, and and at times there's an emergency, and I've seen ambulance, and when an ambulance arrives, there's always a fire truck that appear in case they can't get access to the apartment where the elderly person needs help, needs medical attention. And, you know, as I said, it just blocks the whole street. The only concern I have is congestion. And I would say about almost 25 years ago, I was a owner of a daycare center. I think I was the original owner, along with a partner, that started these daycare centers. And, you know, I'm pro daycare center, but at that location, to me, it just increases the congestion. And at times I have elderly people across the street, when they sit out front, um, they get the sunlight. And what they do is they cross the street and sit in front of my business. And as I said, you know, the congestion, people double parking will pose a problem. That's my opinion.
Okay, Mark, I appreciate your concerns.
Can I add something else?
Of
Most
course.
of, most of these, the students at St. Therese aren't from the area. And a lot of the parents, they drive their cars and they pick up the kids. You know, I went to St. Therese too. You know, it's a great school. But as I said, a lot of the parents, when they come and pick up their kids, they're not even from the neighborhood.
Understood. And look, we've got 3 schools within a 2-block area, right?
Mhm.
We've got Poytak on Wentworth, we've got St. Therese on 23rd Street, then we've got Haynes on 23rd Place. I want to address specifically your concern that this is going to cause further traffic congestion. Karen,
Mhm.
can you talk about what age the kids are going to be that are primarily going to use this location?
Mhm. Yeah, so this is primarily going to be our high school students, and they're coming from school after school, and most of them use CTA, so they're walking actually to the location
Yeah, but
from like either the L or the bus on Archer.
yeah, if that,
Can I add a word over there? The building is located on the corner of 23rd Street and Princeton. Um, the street parking immediately in front of the building is a bit unique over there. They've got over a 75-foot frontage that has no side parking allowed, which in cases of emergencies and things like that, if elderly, people are in the area, they would be able to get access to emergency vehicles very quickly over there. It's a little bit unlike the other side of Princeton and the 23rd Street where there are cars parked. So I think it would, in this situation on that block, it's this specific building, would alleviate, those concerns that you might have specifically, for these purposes. And during after school hours, we're probably talking, 2 p.m. and after. Um, One, I do notice that, St. Therese does experience some parking congestion over there, but we're generally talking, after business hours and things like that. So it's generally, a little bit less traffic at that time.
Yeah, the school traffic is generally like a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon. Now, parents will come earlier to try to claim a spot, and I know, Mark, you're not wrong. I mean, even the parents that live in the neighborhood, unless they live within like a 1 or 2 block radius, they're not walking, they're driving.
Mhm.
So that is also part of the challenge. I wouldn't say that everybody is coming from outside the area, but there are plenty of people that are. With the high school kids don't get out of school until 3 o'clock or and after.
Yeah.
So they are generally not getting in. Karen, please keep me honest here. I think the earliest that anybody would any of that programming starts is probably 4 o'clock. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
imagine it starts before then.
Yeah, so we open for the kids to come in at 3:30, but really it's like a handful of kids, but yeah, they don't start coming till 4:30.
what's
And then your
what's
programming goes until what
Karen,
time?
Till
what's the
7
maximum amount of students that you're gonna have?
in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Probably no more than like 15 or 20. Honestly,
50.
it really just serves as one extra classroom for us.
Okay, as I said, there's a lot of illegal parking. There's people double park all the time, and there's spaces where you're not supposed to park, but people still park there. And you say that, for school hours at St. Teresa's only a certain time, but in an emergency, I've seen ambulances coming late at night, in the mid-afternoon, in the morning, throughout the entire day. And I'm at my office every other day, and
Yeah,
I see
I
them.
imagine you see a lot of emergency vehicles because
Right.
of the senior home that's right there.
Mhm.
And the ambulances and the fire trucks are deployed because there's firefighters are also EMTs.
Right.
So they oftentimes if there's not an ambulance nearby, the fire truck will be deployed first. Um, in most cases, especially in Chinatown, we'll always see a fire engine with an ambulance that follows.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure that this will create more traffic though. Karen, do you know, are your kids, do they get picked up or are they on public transportation going home for the most part?
There's both. I mean, there
There's
definitely
both.
is some pickup, but a lot of them will just get back on
And,
CTA
and
like
what time does the programming end?
7.
So Mark, this is all like later after school. It's really like, so, I don't know what time your business closes. But the
During the-
pickup would be later in the evening.
Yeah, during the tax season, I'm there till like sometimes 10, 11
Okay,
during the tax season.
got it. I
During
didn't
the
realize, I didn't realize what you did, Mark.
yeah.
Okay. Um, Anybody else with other questions or concerns? Mark, I hear you on the congestion issues. I can try to work with St. Therese on the congestion around, pickup and drop off.
Mhm.
I think that they generally do a pretty decent job of managing because they actually do position staff at that intersection of 23rd and Princeton. But anytime you're near a school, you're gonna get that kind of congestion, especially
Right,
at
I
the drop off
understand.
and pickup.
Mhm. Right, I
Yeah,
understand, that's expected, but if you add more, schools or more businesses, that increases the congestion. And that's
yeah,
my,
I mean, no, I'm not denying that there's absolutely a fair chance that if someone's coming to pick up their kid at 7 o'clock at night, and there's 15 kids and half of them are getting picked up, that there will be cars out on the street while they're waiting for their kids to come out. But it's only during the times that they're operating, so it's not creating traffic for the entire day or throughout the day. That's
well,
what I would be more concerned if it was doing that.
I mean, I'm not, I don't think it would be the entire day, but if you, talk about 2, 3 hours, that's still, quite a, create
No, that
congestion. For two,
that
3 hours, I think that's still,
No. They are only operating. The programming only operates from 4 to 7. The kids come from school after school and predominantly on public transportation. Most of them aren't getting dropped off. And if
Mhm.
they are, there's not cars that are sitting there for 3 hours waiting for their kids to come out. It's about a drop off and a pickup as well.
Okay, so
Between
can they
that window.
assure, can they assure the community that there's only at the maximum 15 students and their hours are from 4 to 7?
I think that they're now, Karen, I don't want to answer for you, but I'm not trying to force them into this either. So like, because what do you think the capacity of that location is? Because let me ask in those terms.
Yeah, we have been in the location and, looking at the space and just looking at like the setup that we'd like. It probably is capacity about 30 students if you're just doing like kind of like stationary like classroom stuff. Um,
Is it
I think
15 or 30?
No. I asked her what the capacity is,
capacity.
Oh, okay.
and they're playing because what I don't want to do, Mark,
Mhm.
is if they have capacity for 30 and they need to use the space for 30, that they're not allowed to, because what you're asking for is a commitment, right? You're asking for them to make a promise to the
I mean,
community.
if their business plan is for 15 students, then I think they should abide by that. That's
Well,
all.
I don't think that that's necessarily their business plan, and if they have the space to use, I mean, that's why I asked the question about capacity.
Right.
I would be uncomfortable saying to them, you can't have more than 15 students there.
Okay, right. I agree, but I think that 30 students is quite a few. That's my opinion.
Understood. Um, Karen, what's the likelihood that you would need to have 30 kids in there on a regular basis?
Well, I mean, I think part of the part of the reason why we wanted the space is so that we can have the capacity to expand a little bit, to, put a few students, add a few students here and there into our programming. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I can't make a commitment that we won't ever have, won't ever fill that capacity. But for now, what our plan is to kind of bring some of the overflow students that we have from like our other two, or mainly our high school location, to this new location. And that's probably going to be, 15 or so students like on a regular basis.
And also across the street from the elderly apartments is a condo unit, a condo building that I think it's like 5, 6 stories. And there's, people coming in and out, people going to work, people, going shopping, people getting picked up, and that adds to the congestion. I don't know how many apartments there are, but I see that all the time. They double park and they unload grocery, or they drop friends off, or they wait there to pick up friends, or and so forth. They order food and there's food delivery. I don't know how many apartments there are. I think there's like maybe 30, 40, 30 apartments.
Yeah, it's dense over there, and I wasn't here for that. Like I didn't change the zoning over there.
Right.
And I don't understand why they didn't build more parking, to be honest. That is a problem over there.
Yeah.
I am inclined to support this zoning change to create the conformity. I think that it's a good use of this space. I hear you on the concerns around parking, and what I can commit to you, Mark, is that I can get parking enforcement out more frequently to issue tickets when people are parked illegally. There's
Mhm.
going to be some work going on along Wentworth that we could look at down the road to create to take away the opportunities for people to park illegally. I understand exactly what you're saying when they park on, especially when they don't leave the corner clearance, it's very dangerous for the seniors, especially as they're crossing the street. If you can't be seen around a vehicle, it's gonna be easier for you to get hit. So I think that there are some things that we can do to try to address some of the congestion issues you're talking about. Um, I I haven't necessarily observed, and I'm not trying to because you're sitting there seeing it all the time. If you're sitting there all day long, you know better than I do what the traffic patterns are like over there.
And
Um,
Nicole, sorry to interrupt you, but one time I was dropped off by Uber. I had a meeting downtown and Uber dropped me off. When I opened the door, a car crashed into the Uber driver's door and tore it off. And that lady was picking up a student from St. Therese. So, I mean, accidents happen. I understand that, but I would say the congestion created that because the Uber driver had to double park, and there were a whole line of cars that were lined up.
yeah, and I can
And
talk
also,
to
I'm sorry, Nicole. And also, I reserved a space for temporary parking. You have to have your flashing lights on.
uh-huh.
And I pay the city quite a bit every year. And at times, people from St. Therese park in front of it, and some of my clients, they want to drop things off. They don't have, that space is taken. And, anybody can park there. All they have to do is just leave their blinkers on, their flashers on. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, some people stay there for like 20, 30 minutes, quite a while. Whereas I have some clients that just want to drop off paperwork or pick up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alderman,
Mark, so yeah, the challenge with those is like you absolutely you're paying the bill for that. Unfortunately, it's not specific to your business. That's not how that
Right, I
works.
understand. I have no qualms about that, but as
Yeah.
I said, the less would be better.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's like you're facing a challenge that isn't unique.
My phone was listening to our conversation and trying to give us a solution. That was so funny. Um,
Alderwoman?
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead, Mark.
Mark Kupiec here. If I could, just a little bit on behalf of the property owner. Um, and obviously I don't dispute the other uses, but I just to put in perspective a little bit, we're talking about using existing space in an existing building. So we're not talking about new construction that would make anything worse, okay? This is existing space, existing building, and generally the owner of the property is entitled to a reasonable use of his property.
Yeah, as a resident, Mark.
Mark, please, could I?
Okay, go ahead.
I wasn't interrupting.
Mhm.
So the owner of this building entitled to a reasonable use of his building, and I don't know how old this building is, but it looks like it's been there for a while, maybe even before that senior citizen building. So I don't dispute the existing uses. They are what they are. But if we're coming with an after-school program, we're not going to conflict or make the situation at St. Therese any worse because they're a day school and we're coming after school. So actually the timing is good. So that situation at St. Therese is not going to be made any worse by our use of this particular property. With respect to the senior citizen center and the ambulances or whatnot, we're certainly not going to conflict with that or make that any worse or different because it's a completely different use. So there may be some congestion there. There's maybe some congestion in the area. We understand, you understand that better than I historically, but the owner of this building is entitled to a reasonable use of the building. So because some of these other sites, like the senior citizen building or the condo building, sounds like, they're rather dense development there because they've got their density doesn't mean that we should keep our first floor space open just because they've got a dense use over there. So I would just argue to be fair for the owner of this building too, that he have a reasonable use of this first floor space. And this use seems to be a great one, especially with the hours of operation.
Yeah, but it's zoned for residents, right? And as I said, I grew up across the street and I don't ever recall business being there. And I always remember that it was used as a residence. And in Chinatown,
Mark, I just saw you said that
Mark,
before.
I'm talking, or let me finish, Mark. I'm sorry. there's a lot of demand for residents in Chinatown around that area. And I know because I own rental property there. And once I put a space up for rent, boom, it gets picked up. People, even when they know I own property there and they don't even see a rent sign, they ask me, hey, do you have anything for rent? Do you have anything for rent? I want to move to Chinatown. I want to be near the neighborhood, the restaurants and the shops and so forth. And it's zoned for residents, so why change it? As I said, there's never been a business there since I grew, and I'm in my 60s, and my family moved there from Milwaukee in the late 60s, and there's never been a business there.
But there have been businesses along the Princeton
I know,
corridor.
where do you draw the line? I have a property. Can I convert that into a business? A residential building. Is it possible for me to convert that into a business? Zone it for business? I'm just
I mean,
saying.
Mark, if you were interested, I would entertain the conversation. This is the whole purpose of this meeting, is to raise the issues, and you've raised plenty of issues.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like they're insurmountable at this point. Um, I would like for Project Vision to be able to move into this space. They are already in the neighborhood. They're right down the street. It is sort of off hours from the school's traffic. Um, and I'm inclined to change the zoning on this so that they are able to just get their permit to operate in the space.
Mhm.
Um, if there are concerns down the road later, we can talk about, you know, uh, potentially changing something back, but it is not uncommon along Princeton for all of these side streets to have had businesses. I understand if there hasn't been one on that corner, but there certainly has been on Alexander, there certainly has been on 22nd, there certainly has been on 24th Street, nothing on 23rd Street. But on 24th Street is yet another one. So and this is not a highly dense use with how they're going to be operating. Literally, really only going to be operating for about 4 hours a day, 3:30 to 7:30, and with a drop off and a pickup. So it's not like customers are coming the entire time, in and out of a business. Now, I will do my best to address your other traffic concerns. Matt, did you have a question?
More just kind of a comment, mostly in support, but I think something that is worth calling out that might help address Mark's concerns is that the zoning request is to B23, right?
Mhm.
And so with that still allows for this to be converted back to residential
Yes,
if Project Vision
correct.
moves out of the space down the road.
B2-3 allows for ground floor residential. That's why we
Yeah.
selected that B
So
zoning.
it
Yeah.
seems like that's already factored in with the choice of zoning. And with the two classification, it also means that a lot of the use cases that should probably cause more direct concern, such as like anything auto related, is not.
You wouldn't be able to,
Yeah.
yes.
So it seems like that was already addressed with.
We really didn't get into it, but thank
Yeah,
you for raising that.
So
Yeah.
just wanted to call that out because I feel like the main concern is over vehicle traffic, and there's some flexibility with this to ensure that both the worst use cases
Yeah.
are not there.
And Mark, I didn't mention to you earlier, but unrelated to this zoning request, I have asked CDOT to do a regional traffic study, specifically looking at Chinatown from 22nd, well, from Archer really, south to 24th Place. Um, Princeton and Stewart in particular, because I think Princeton probably should just be a one-way street with diagonal parking on one side. I avoid Princeton as much as I can because I like my side mirrors. So that's not lost on me at all. Please understand, like I know we have traffic congestion problems in the neighborhood. I'm not trying to add to it, just with all willy-nilly at all with this. I'm comfortable enough with the risk, if you will, knowing that we're looking to make some changes to help traffic flow and to address the parking challenges that we have, especially with illegal parking.
Yeah, it would be a good idea to convert Princeton to a one-way
Yeah, I'm in my sort of bigger vision, Princeton is a one-way street going south, and Stewart is a one-way street going north. That would allow for better traffic flow, and frankly, it would be a lot safer for pedestrians too, not just vehicles.
Mhm.
And I do think that that would help because if you don't have two-way traffic, especially around school drop-off time, down Princeton, then that problem that you had with the Uber driver and the Uber driver getting hit by the parent. The thing that I'm going to talk to St. Teresa about is to see if they can cut off the double parking that they not allow it past 23rd Street, not past Princeton, so that way it's not in front of your business. People shouldn't be double parking there. I think along 23rd Street for that half hour, there's sort of an expectation, right? I wouldn't expect for that to go west of Princeton, which is where you are, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so let me see what I can do to try to alleviate some of that for you there.
Okay.
And I'm glad I'm hearing about it, Mark, because and I tell everybody, and if you get to know me, if I don't know that there's a problem, I can't do anything to try to address it. This
Yeah.
is something that I certainly, I think I can help to affect, and improve. Especially given, the addition that we're wanting to do here.
Right. It's important for the elderly to have quality of life too, instead of dodging.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay.
Okay.
If there are no other questions or concerns, we can end the meeting here. I am going to provide a letter of support for this zoning change. Mark, we'll get that prepared for you as soon as possible. I know you're trying to meet some deadlines here. Yeah, and Karen, I wish you luck. If you wouldn't mind though, Karen, please get some information together for the parents of anybody that is going to be picked up by a vehicle. Let's talk about, a traffic plan, if you will, so that we can make recommendations as to where people can wait for their
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
that corner is not going to be a good place for people to just
Yeah.
hang out and double park, right? So they've got
Yeah.
to come maybe closer down to the other location, or at least
Yes.
along 23rd Street versus, we want them to stay off of Princeton.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't want to interrupt earlier, but I was going to say that we could definitely work with our parents to, instruct them to have like safe parking practices or like designated, pickup or drop off areas so that it's not at that corner.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Okay. Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.